Om Ajnanatimmirandasya Jnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti-vedanta Swaminiti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschatya Deshatarine Jai Shri Krishna Caitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Rama Hare Hare Mukam karoti vachalam pangum langhayate girim yat krupatamham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinam Paramananda Madhavam. Hare Krishna, dear devotees. So last week we started studying about Brahma-saṁhitā, and last week we got the introduction of Brahma-saṁhitā a little bit, and we also saw history of Brahma-saṁhitā. Can you see my slides, Ji?
Yes, bro.
Yeah. So today I wanted to continue where we left last week, and then discuss about what is the purpose of the book that Śrīla Prabhupāda, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Maharaj wrote. And then discussing that from next week, we can start reading the actual verses and the purports. So last week, what we briefly saw was introduction. What is Brahma-saṁhitā? Then how Chaitanya Mahaprabhu discovered it in a manuscript form in the Adi-Keshava temple in his trip to South India, and then how he made a copy of it, and then he gave it to some of his confidential devotees, and he asked all the Vaiṣṇavas to make a copy of it. And then from this verse, Madhya, chapter 9 to 39 and to 40 purport, we saw what is in the Brahma-saṁhitā, that what is we are going to learn from Brahma-saṁhitā. So today we will discuss what is the purpose of the book that Bhaktisiddhānta Goswami Maharaj wrote. So what it is not. So Brahma-saṁhitā, when studying about the Brahmaji's prayers, we learn something about a different world that is beyond our understanding. Brahmaji takes us to Krishna's abode called Goloka Vrindavan, and again different worlds in between, as well as the process and how and who can see this. So what it is not is, it is not just mere mystic hallucination that somebody may say, oh, this is something we cannot experience, or it is just some old-fashioned mythology, or it is some fairy tale that describes some imaginary wonderland or dreamland, or even some just Vedic literature where one can exercise some pious wishful thinking. So it is definitely not that. So because it may seem from a person, our perspective, that what is described in Brahmaji's prayers is beyond our understanding. So it may seem something as imaginary or some mythology. So what is Brahma-saṁhitā? It is actually literally to get a glimpse of that spiritual world through Brahmaji's eyes, who has experienced this in his prayers and getting a glimpse of that Goloka Vrindavan, that by mercy of Lord Sri Kṛṣṇa. And the same thing can be experienced by somebody or self-realized person who is tinged with the ointment of love, as in the Brahma-saṁhitā itself, most of you probably know, Premanjana Churita Bhakti Vilochanena Santas Sadaiva Hridayeshu Vilokayanti. So based on our attentiveness, or based on our sincerity, based on our understanding, or based on our level of surrender, it may be different degrees what we get a glimpse of that, and however dimmed it may be to our own insensitivities, but it will be to some degree, we will get that experience when we are sincerely studying this Brahma-saṁhitā. Just like Lord Kṛṣṇa says in the Bhagavad-gītā, ye yatha mam prapadyante tam sathaiva bhajāmyam. In the same manner, when we are studying this Brahma-saṁhitā, we will get glimpse of that spiritual world called Goloka Vrindavan or Goloka Dham through Brahmaji's vision. And so that is the only qualification that is needed, our sincerity and attentiveness when we are studying this Brahma-saṁhitā, as explained by Brahmaji. And so for that, there is no age or any other material qualification needed. Just like if we remember, Prahlad Maharaj says to his fellow students when they ask him that, oh, where did you learn this knowledge? Because you are a prince, you are son of Hiranyakashipu, and then you don't go anywhere, but what you are trying to teach us is something different. Where did you learn all this? And then Prahlad Maharaj explains this, that he learned everything what he is trying to teach his fellow students, his friends in the Gurukul, that he learned everything in the womb of a mother. So imagine a boy or a child that is not even born, that is in mother's womb. If with attentiveness, if that child can listen to this, even he can get this self-realized knowledge. So attentiveness is the most, our sincerity and attention is the most important factor in this. Actually, I have heard, I think sometime back, Vaiṣṇava Prabhu in one of his class mentioned, we don't have anything to give to Krishna, because everything what we have is basically his. It's energy, even this body, or everything what we have is his. The only thing what we can give him is our attention. And when we do that with sincerity, when we are studying this Brahma-saṁhitā, then to that degree, we will definitely get a glimpse of that Goloka Vrindavan. We will see through Brahmaji's vision that transcendental world called Goloka Vrindavan, of which Lord Kṛṣṇa says that this material world is mere reflection. As he says in the 15th chapter of Bhagavad-gītā in the first couple of verses, Urdhva Moolam Adashakam Ashwatham Prahuravyam. So he compares this material world to a vast banyan tree upside down, of which Urdhva Moolam, the roots are upwards and the branches and twigs and everything is downward, and it is like spread so vastly. And then he says that Yastam Vedasa Vedavid, one who knows this is Vedavid. So if this world is just mere reflection or mere shadow of that, what we can experience only through our blunt material senses. So for understanding of what it is reflection, we need some guidance from somebody like Brahmaji. And from his prayers, we can get glimpse of that real tree, which is transcendental, which is unimaginable, which is beyond our conception. And that is what we are going to learn through these prayers of Brahmaji. And that is what is the purpose of Brahma-saṁhitā. So we saw what Brahma-saṁhitā is, and what we will see through Brahmaji is like that Golok Vrindavan. That is the glimpse what we are going to get through this book called Brahma-saṁhitā. And then Brahmaji's vision, what he is seeing through this, what he's explaining or what he's narrating in his prayers, the spiritual world, is it his only vision? So just like in the Bhagavad-gītā, Lord Kṛṣṇa, when Arjuna says about what is his understanding of Lord Kṛṣṇa is Param Brahma Param Dhama Pavitram Paramam Bhavan Puruṣam Śashvatam Divyam Ādi-devam Ajam Vibhu. So he glorifies Kṛṣṇa with all these adjectives that you are the supreme person, you are Aja, you are the purest person. But then he says that Asito Devalo Vyasa Swayam Chaiva Varvishame, that this is this is not only what I am understanding, but this is how all the great sages also understand you. Devarshi Narada Satha, or Devarshi Narada, Asita, Devala, Vyasa, and you yourself are telling this. In the same manner, what Brahmaji is narrating us about Goloka Dham, that spiritual abode, is not only his vision, but it is also can be realized by the self-realized devotees, self-realized persons who dedicate their life in Krishna's service or who are engaged in his bhakti, prema bhakti. So they also get a experience of this spiritual world, and they also can see this. And this is also Brahmaji narrates in the towards the end of his prayers in the 56th verse of this chapter in the Brahma-saṁhitā, when he summarizes what his vision about Brahma, the spiritual abode is. Shriya Kanta Kanta Parama-purusho Kalpatarvo Druma Bhumischintamani. So he narrates that, and in the end he says that Vidantaste Santa Kshiti Virala Chara Katipaye. Vidantaste Santa, those self-realized devotees who are engaged in Krishna's devotional service. Vedantas, they know or they understand, they experience this spiritual world. But Kshiti Virala Chara Katipade, Kshiti means on this planet, material planet, they are viral, they are very seldom, they are very few. They are not too many. But they only can understand this. So just like Brahmaji is narrating this description of the Goloka, Vrindavan, and all this planetary system, the self-realized devotees of Krishna, they can also experience this. But they are very, very few. They are very rare to find. As I think I'm thinking of verses from Bhagavad-gītā, Manushyanam Sahasreshu. Krishna says that Manushyanam Sahasreshu Kaśyid Yatati Siddhaye Yatatam api Siddhanam Kaśyin Mam Vetti Tatvata. Just like out of many, many thousands among men, hardly one tries for perfection, Krishna says. But Yatatam api Siddhanam, out of those self-realized persons, hardly anyone knows. Kaśyin Mam Vetti Tatvata. In the same manner, that hunger or thirst to see or experience that spiritual world is in very few people first. That spark or that desire to experience that world is in very few devotees. And to experience that are very few on top of that. So somebody had asked me that how can one give somebody the spiritual knowledge, or how can we make somebody read Bhagavatam or read Brahma-saṁhitā or read Bhagavad-gītā? Experience I had when I was discussing Bhagavad-gītā with some other friends. I used to recite some verses in narration or in the relation to from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, and then without me telling them, they started asking me, where can we get this book, Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam? So I did not have to tell them that you should read Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but just by listening to the references related to that and understanding the philosophy and getting those details, it created thirst for them, or it created that inquisitiveness for them to understand what is Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. And today, all of them, they have Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam set and they are reading it. So not telling them. In the same manner, when we develop that hunger or thirst to see that, then automatically we will develop a taste for that, and we will kind of want to do this. In the same manner, we will study this Shastra, and that's why we are here for. So those are very rare souls who have this thirst to know about that spiritual world, and that's what we are going to see from Brahmaji in this scripture or the book called Brahma-saṁhitā. And when we are reading this Brahma-saṁhitā, it is not that we should just blindly accept what he has narrated us or what he is telling us, but he also gives us different ways how we can study this and the path what we can follow, by which we can experience that ourselves without having just blind faith. We can understand this transcendental spiritual world. We can experience that transcendental spiritual world uncritically by our own experience. The more and more we follow that path which Brahmaji gives, the path of bhakti yoga, the path of spiritual discipline, and gradually we will lead to us that our own experience of understanding what he is giving to us through this Brahma-saṁhitā. And then we will start understanding more about that spiritual world, what Brahmaji is explaining in this. So the purpose of this small book that Śrīla Prabhupāda, Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Goswami Maharaj has given us to study and follow that path that Brahmaji is giving us and try to put that in our life. And then it will eventually inspire us to engage in the bhakti. So when we read this scrutinizingly, when we study this book scrutinizingly, then automatically that love for Krishna, the love for that Goloka Dham, which is non-different from Krishna, will develop in the heart of the reader or heart of whoever is studying this. So that love, when we develop, we will get that experience similarly what Brahmaji has, and then we will understand this. In the introduction, the publishers also mentioned that for studying Brahma-saṁhitā, it is rather little bit advanced book, and if the reader and one who is studying, he has some familiarity with the books of like Śrīmad-Bhāgavad-gītā or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or Caitanyacaritāmṛta and Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu, they will have better understanding, or they can understand this Brahma-saṁhitā much better eventually. So that familiarity of all other scriptures does help understanding this book and Brahma-saṁhitā. We learned a little bit about this importance of this Brahma-saṁhitā in last week. There, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself, when he got this Brahma-saṁhitā chapter in Adi-Keshava temple in his tour to South India, he got ecstatic symptoms, and he was so happy to find this, and he not only got copies made of this, but he gave it to his confidential devotees like Vasudeva Datta, Mukunda Datta, and Ramananda Raya, and asked all the Vaiṣṇavas also make a copy of this, because he realized and he taught this hymn to his favorite devotees, because he realized, or he explained them, that this text fully contains the transcendental truths regarding the Vaiṣṇava philosophy. And these verses from Brahma-saṁhitā, he asked them to study on regular daily basis with much care and attention. And as we see from Śrīla Prabhupāda, his disciple, he also was very fond of this Brahma-saṁhitā prayers, and many lectures, if you hear, in the beginning of his lectures, he always recite these prayers in his melodious voice and with intense devotion and love. Govindam, ādi-puruṣam, ahaṁ, bhajāmi. We always hear him, and he also asked his disciples that these prayers should be sung or played when the deity darshan opens in all the temples. And today I think it's followed in all the ISKCON temples around the world. There is something that Prabhupada instructed about this book, which his Guru Maharaj has written. So he was very concerned about any editing or any changes in this book, and he was also concerned that any edition, like any editorial changes, like grammatical or stylish, or making it a little bit simple English, because Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's this book is like little bit too much technical. It has lots of technical Sanskrit details and some mantras that he narrates there. Also, the English what he has used is not so easy to understand, but still, Śrīla Prabhupada was very adamant that nothing should in this book should be changed, and he asked this book to be left as is. And the publishers of this book, they complied with Śrīla Prabhupada's wish that this book not to be changed anything, and that's why we have this book as it is in the form the way Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur has written. So to know that this book we are going to study from next week, the verses we will start studying. So the general purpose of this book, as I tried to explain in brief, is to get a glimpse of that spiritual world called Goloka Vrindavan, Krishna's own abode, through the vision of Brahmaji, who is narrating through his prayers, as presented by Śrīla Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur, and delivered to us by the most merciful Acharya of our age, our beloved Śrīla Prabhupada. So that's what the purpose of this book is. And that purpose is what I will have in mind when we are reading this Bhagavad-gītā. I always come to that. But this Brahma-saṁhitā, these verses of Brahma-saṁhitā from next week, and we will take the journey to that spiritual world together when we are reading this text of the Brahma-saṁhitā. So from next week, we will be taking tour to that wonderland or that spiritual world, which is actually real, and get that experience through Brahmaji's vision. So I'll stop here, and we have 5 more minutes, so we'll get some reflections and if there are any questions. So thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. Thank you so much for breaking this down for us. I'm very excited to get started. Do you have any recommendations on how we can prepare for jumping into the text? I know the language is quite complicated, and I tried to read it once before and got stuck on even just some of the language in the purports.
So I'm thinking every week we will do one verse, or actually the first verse, there are commentaries of Jiva Goswami and Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur. So we probably may need more than 1 week for the first verse and first couple of verses. But if when we come here, obviously I will read that. But if we come, before coming here, we can at least read that. That will be helpful. So it will help us, all of us, understand this together.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Radhā-Rañjana Prabhu. I really like the point you made about the attention. Giving attention is the key to everything. So, yeah, I'm definitely looking forward from next week. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Anand Baldev Prabhu. Yeah.
Prabhu, we have one hand up
Yeah.
by Vicky.
Yeah, Vicky Prabhu. Yes.
Hare Krishna, Radhā-Rañjana Prabhu. Thank you so much. Really enjoying both last week and this week. I have a follow-up question from last week. You had mentioned that Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu found the Brahma-saṁhitā in the Adi-Keshava temple, but he found just one chapter, which was chapter 5, and all the other chapters had been lost. And then I was reading in Bhagavatam that the Brahma-saṁhitā is a summary of the Bhagavatam. So I was wondering if you could explain further.
So about the chapters lost, that's what we have information from the history and the description what we understand from Caitanyacaritāmṛta, that unfortunately all the other, it is said that there are 100 chapters in the Brahma-saṁhitā, But Lord Caitanya found only one chapter, and he according to him was one of the most important chapters, which contain Brahmaji's prayers, and which gives us description of the prema bhakti. Actually, lots of things it covers, and it also gives us the description of that Lord Kṛṣṇa is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The very first verse, as it says, Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam, that he is the cause of all causes. And that is actually the essence of all the Vedas. To know Krishna, as Krishna says in the Bhagavad-gītā, Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedya. To know Krishna and to engage in his devotional service is the essence of all the Vedic literatures. And from that point of view, in Brahma-saṁhitā also, it is mentioning that how there are descriptions of Goloka Vrindavan, as well as there are descriptions of how by devotion only Krishna can be achieved. That it is said that Vedeshu durlabham adurlabham atma bhakto, that Brahmaji in his prayer says that Krishna, you are durlabh, means very difficult to understand or difficult to attain by studying all the Vedas, but adurlabham atma bhakto, but to your own devotees who engage in your loving devotional service, because you yourself give to them, so you are easily available. And that's what is the essence of Bhagavad-gītā or Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or even all the Vedic literature. So that's how in the Brahma-saṁhitā is, in that sense, it is also the essence of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam as well. And after Brahmaji finishes his prayers, what information or the details Krishna gives in the end, or the instructions he gives, that is also the essence of all the Vedic literature. The way he explains everything to him, that what is the essence of Vedas, that is also covered in the last 5 or 6 verses in the end of Brahma-saṁhitā.
Thank you so much, Prabhu.
Thank you. Does that help, Mataji?
Yes, very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, Mataji. Stop sharing.
Thank you very much, Radhā-Rañjana Prabhu, for a nice presentation, Prabhu.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. Thank you because when now I am reading Brahma-saṁhitā is completely different, because it's a different experience. The first time I read was few years ago, where I did not understand anything. I decided when I was going to India, I took this book, Brahma-saṁhitā, and in flight I had goal to read this. After a few pages, I realized that I'm not going to understand anything, even if I read this. But I still wanted to finish, and I just continued, even if I don't understand anything. And then after that, I read few times. But this time, in last month or so, when I read this, that was completely different experience.
Yeah, wonderful, Prabhu. Very nice.
Thank you so much for this opportunity. Yes, Shweta
Prabhu,
Mataji.
Prabhu.
Not a question, Prabhu. So just I should thank you for giving such a nice introduction and purpose of the Brahma-saṁhitā. Really very helpful. I read the book maybe I think 3-4 months back, and I couldn't understand one word. I was talking to Apara Mataji, and even she was saying it's one of the very difficult texts to understand. And I'm really happy that we are having this class. Thank you so much.
And you are not alone, Mataji. I am with you in there.
Okay.
So yeah, with all of us together, I think we can study this together and then help each other understand this.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Looking forward to that. Thank you.
Yes,
Hare Krishna.
okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dandavat Pranam, Jai Śrīla Prabhupāda. So, thank you so much for starting these classes. I had great interest to read and understand Brahma-saṁhitā couple of years back. It was also taken up in the Bhakti-rasāmṛta, but after a few sessions it was discontinued. And even when we were reading, it was too tough for us to follow. So after that, I never even touched it. Then this is the time when you brought it, and then you're trying to make it easy for us to understand. So it is so nice of you. And you mentioned that even when you read it a couple of times, I mean, earlier you couldn't understand earlier, but this time you kind of started understanding. So what is your realization? Like, what is the difference, or what is the reason? Is that initially one doesn't understand, then slowly comes to a point where he tries to see some meaning in it. So could you please explain?
The difference, I think, whenever I learned this some time back, if you want to learn some subject, teach it. And then when Shankaran Prabhu asked me if I can start this Brahma-saṁhitā, and I had a month. So every morning, first thing what I will do is I read few pages from Brahma-saṁhitā, contemplate on it, reread it again, and spend about half an hour. And that time when I was reading, of course, there are also few books I have read since last 3-4 years ago when I read Brahma-saṁhitā. And then I have little bit better understanding from Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam or other books what I have read. And that helped to understand this. And to be honest, I was having my phone with me, and there are so many English words that Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Prabhupāda has used. I needed dictionary. And I was reading and trying to understand them. Not that I understand everything, but when I'm reading the purports, I was trying to understand what is mode of Bhaktisiddhānta Sarasvatī Thakur and how he has written this. And then I also found one commentary online by Jiva Goswami on Brahma-saṁhitā's verses. So that also helped. So, and I will try to share as much as my capacity allows me to present here. So that's what the difference was, the intensity which I was reading this time, because I knew I had to present this. And by searching other commentaries and trying to understand those verses and trying to understand those purports from different perspective.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji, for
Thank
sharing.
you, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhuji. You really set up very nicely the mood for how we should study Brahma-saṁhitā.
Thank you, Mataji.
I think Vicky brought the point that Brahma-saṁhitā is a summary of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. Is that correct, Prabhu? It's there somewhere in Bhagavatam?
Not that I read anywhere, but when you read Brahma-saṁhitā, it seems like that. And it feels like that everywhere. Even when you read the Chatushloki Bhagavatam, it is summary of everything. Or when you read the concluding verse of Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Nama Sankirtanam Yasyas Sarva Papa Pranashanam Pranamo Dukkhasham Nastam Namami Harim Param. That is essence of the whole Bhagavatam. Basically, if you just take Nam, just chant Hare Krishna, that's Sarva Papa Pranashanam. So in the same manner, Brahma-saṁhitā is Brahmaji's prayers. So, and the more and more you try to understand verses from Brahma-saṁhitā, you'll realize that this is the essence. It talks about how the cycle of karma works, or how everybody from Brahma to Indra to the small germ called Indragopa, everybody is experiencing the results of their karma, but only by bhakti every karma can be burned and he can be freed. So that all these verses, they give us literally essence of not only Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam, but essence of all the Vedic literature. The more and more you get the depth of those verses, the more and more you will realize that, oh, this is what we study in Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam. This is what Krishna is trying to tell in Bhagavad-gītā. This is what we are reading everywhere in all the Vedic literature. So in that sense, yes, it is summary, but I personally have not read such a statement.
Thank you, Prabhu.
Shankaran Prabhuji, if you want to add something more, please.
No, Prabhu. I'm driving, Prabhu. But yeah, what he says is correct. Brahma-saṁhitā in one way actually is the sense of all the Vedic texts. Prabhupada mentioned somewhere, some places.
Mhm.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. And that is why I think, as we read in the introduction, that Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was giving so much emphasis on and telling his disciples to study this text daily. Yes, Tadiya Seva Prabhuji.
I was just contemplating on one point you mentioned. I went through this experience many times. You gave the example of Indragopa, right? The smallest creature.
Mhm.
So, and even Bhagavatam says that everybody is reaping the benefits of their karma.
Mhm.
And I was thinking about my life before coming to Krishna consciousness. I didn't have any spiritual knowledge, but I knew that I was suffering. Even though I didn't have the spiritual knowledge, and then I was trying my best, not to suffer. Inevitably there is suffering, and no matter unless and until you have the spiritual knowledge, you cannot avoid suffering. So it is really scary to not to come to spiritual path, and then in ignorance we suffer in so many ways. My Guru Maharaj often tells there are with this material body you may be able to enjoy in couple of ways, but there are million ways with which with this material body you can suffer. So what I'm trying to say is spiritual knowledge is extremely important, and I have not seen any other way by which one can avoid suffering in this material world.
Thank you so much for sharing that thoughts, Prabhu. I think that is the very first step to know actually that we are suffering. Many people here do not accept and do not know that they are suffering. They accept that this is life, and then we will try our best to enjoy it to the fullest possible extent we can. But they don't know that we are suffering, and that is the very first step. I think we all can search for real happiness. So thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Is it okay to stop here?
Yeah, I think we can stop, Mataji. We are already over a lot. So thank you so much, Prabhujis and Matajis, and we will continue next week with the first verse of Brahma-saṁhitā.
Thank you very much, Radhā-Rañjana Prabhu. Jai. Vancha kalpatarubhyascha
Vasundhavya chapatyanam bhavanabhyo Vaiṣṇavabhyo namo namo.
Thank you, Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna.